Good evening. Welcome to Loveworld USA News. I'm Barbara Sam. First, a quick look at the top stories this evening. President Trump announces 90-day pause on global tariffs, raises China tariffs to 125%. New York City authorities, federal immigration office at Rikers Island for criminal investigations. Musk clashes with Schumer over claims of Social Security sabotage and government fraud. 3 Americans face U.S. charges after Congo coup attempt. Markets surge as President Trump pauses global tariffs. President Donald Trump has announced a 90-day pause on mostly newly announced tariffs under his reciprocal tariff plan, temporarily reducing the rate to 10% for virtually all countries except China, which will now face a 125% tariff on goods exported to the U.S. The announcement was made via Trump's Social Truth platform and was later confirmed by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt during a briefing with reporters. The 10% tariff applies immediately and covers imports from all nations, including close trade partners such as China and Canada. Partners such as Canada and Mexico. Trump said the pause is intended to give countries time to negotiate on trade barriers, currency manipulation, and other related issues. At the same time, citing what he described as China's lack of respect to the world's markets, Trump announced a sharp increase in tariffs on Chinese imports, raising the rate to 125%, also effective immediately. Secretary Bessent said the pause allows for ongoing diplomatic efforts and emphasized that President Trump is expected to be directly involved in negotiation with trading partners. No one creates leverage for himself like President Trump, Bessent remarked, underscoring the administration's goal to secure revised trade deals that benefit U.S. industries and jobs. What happens after the 90-day window remains unclear, but officials indicated the administration is open to extending or adjusting the policy depending on the outcomes of ongoing negotiations. Watch this.
We understand you have a lot of questions, so in the effort of transparency, we're here to talk about the president's latest statement regarding his America First trade plan. As you all know, the president just put out a statement announcing an additional tariff on China. The tariff on China will now go up to 125% because China imprudently decided to retaliate against the United States. And as I said at the podium yesterday, when you punch at the United States of America, President Trump is going to punch back harder. In that same vein, we have had more than 75 countries from around the world reach out to President Trump and his team here at the White House to negotiate better trade deals for the American worker. We have been overwhelmed with the amount of requests from countries around the world. I'll let the Secretary speak to that. We will continue with the tailor-made negotiations that I spoke about yesterday. In the meantime, there will be a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs as these negotiations are ongoing, and the tariff level will be brought down to a universal 10% tariff. The Secretary here has been a huge part of the President's trade team, of course, and will continue to lead these negotiations moving forward to look out for the American worker, which is always President Trump's goal. So I'll kick it over to our great Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
Good, thank you. And we saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they're in this very spot, do not retaliate and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation.
Ed, go ahead.
Secretary, thank you for doing this. Let me ask you 3 quick things, if I could, just for the sake of clarity, because the markets are open and they're wondering. First of all, Mexico and China, are they part of this 10% universal?
The City of New York will allow federal immigration authorities to operate an office inside Rikers Island, the city's main jail complex, according to a new executive order signed Tuesday by Mayor Eric Adams' administration. The order grants Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, specifically its Homeland Security Investigations Division, a presence at the facility to collaborate with the city officials on gang and drug-related criminal cases. The initiative will focus on intelligence sharing and enforcement related to transnational crime, violent offenders, and activity within the jail. The move marks a policy shift from the city's 2014 sanctuary law, which had effectively barred ICE operation within city jails. However, the mayor's order states that ICE agents stationed at Rikers Island will be limited to criminal investigations and are not authorized to conduct civil immigration enforcement. Other federal agencies authorized to operate at Rikers under the new order include the FBI, DEA, ATF, and U.S. Postal Inspection Service, all of which are expected to assist with criminal investigations focused on public safety threats. Mayor Adams, speaking in a radio interview Wednesday, rejected accusations of political motivation or quid pro quo, stating that the city's cooperation is limited strictly to criminal matters and consistent with existing law. Despite the criticism, state officials argue the move is a lawful step intended to improve public safety by cracking down on violent and organized criminal activity within the jail system. Let's take a look.
Mayor Adams has had a number of high-profile meetings with the Trump administration's hard-charging border czar, Tom Homan, about ways New York City can legally assist in cracking down on violent criminals from other countries who are here in New York. Now, a new development.
I, as first deputy mayor, have entered an executive order that will reestablish office space on Rikers Island for federal law enforcement authorities to be able to coordinate directly with correction investigators on criminal investigations.
The move reestablishes immigration agents, ICE, at the prison after a 10-year hiatus. Mastro says the executive order is carefully written to comply with the city's sanctuary city laws, which allow the city to cooperate with criminal investigations into 170 crimes, including murder and rape. City officials are prevented from cooperating in deportations, which are considered civil matters. A particular target will be international terrorist organizations like MS-13 and others.
Will it mean that they will be able to target people who are already in prison at Rikers Island?
To be crystal clear, this is about criminal investigations and law enforcement. This does not involve civil matters at all.
Mastro says he did his own investigation, meeting with people on Rikers before signing the executive order.
These are vicious killers and the worst kind of criminal gangs. That's why they've been designated as terrorist organizations.
Mastro says the probes will center on drugs, guns, murders, and other violent crimes, and could involve people not currently in prison, but communicating with those in jail.
Tensions between Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Department of Government Efficiency DOGE Chief Elon Musk escalated Tuesday after Musk responded to Schumer's accusations that DOGE is undermining Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. Musk suggested on X that Schumer may be benefiting from government fraud, responding to the senator's earlier criticism of DOGE's budget cuts and restructuring efforts. Schumer had previously claimed in the Senate floor speech and on social media that DOGE's actions were tantamount to sabotaging essential federal programs. Make no mistake, what Elon Musk is doing at Social Security is cutting benefits, Schumer wrote. He cited concerns about office closures, web outages, and reduced access to services. Musk pushed back strongly, saying the intern running Schumer's social media account is lying, end quote. He denied any intent to reduce actual benefits and maintained that DOGE's reforms are focused on cutting waste, not services. DOGE, created earlier this year via executive order and led by Musk, is tasked with identifying and eliminating inefficient federal spending. The department has already canceled or cut funding from several federal programs, contracts, and DEI initiatives, claiming to have saved taxpayers $140 billion. The clash comes amid broader debates in Washington over government reform, entitlement program, sustainability, and federal oversight, with DOGE drawing both praises for cost cutting and criticism over service reductions. The news will be back after this break.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. American steel workers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore. We are finally putting America first. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers. More production at home will mean stronger competition at lower prices. From this day on, we're not going to let anyone tell us that American workers and families cannot have the future that they deserve. We're going to produce the cars and ships, chips, airplanes, minerals, and medicines that we need right here in America. We're going to build our future with American hands, with American heart. This will be indeed the golden age of America.
Welcome back. 3 American citizens previously convicted in the Democratic Republic of Congo for attempting to overthrow the government are now facing criminal charges in the United States. The Justice Department announced Wednesday a 4th American, alleged to be a bomb-making expert, has also been charged in connection with the plot. The charges stem from a failed coup in Kinshasa in 2024 that targeted Congo's presidential palace. The Justice Department alleges the Americans were part of an armed rebel movement aimed at removing the current Congolese government and installing a new administration under the name New Zaire, led by opposition figure Christian Malanga. Malanga, who reportedly live-streamed the coup attempt from within the palace, was later killed during an exchange with Congolese authorities. His 22-year-old son, Marcel Malanga, along with Tyler Thompson, 22, and Benjamin Zelman Poulin, 37, were convicted in Congo and initially sentenced to death. Those sentences were later commuted to life imprisonment before the men were repatriated to the United States. Court documents reveal that Marcel Malanga had taken on a leadership role, identifying himself as chief of staff of the Zaire Army and providing training and equipment to the rebel forces. The group allegedly sought to replace Congo's government through military force. All 3 repatriated men are now charged under U.S. law and are expected to appear in court in Brooklyn. The 4th suspect, 67-year-old Joseph Peter Mosier, is scheduled to appear in federal court in Salt Lake City on Thursday. The Justice Department describes the charges as a result of a long-running FBI investigation into U.S.-based efforts to support foreign insurgencies, emphasizing the seriousness of Americans participating in international coup plots. The S&P 500 jumped 7.8% Wednesday after President Donald Trump announced a 90-day pause on most new tariffs, easing fears of a global economic downturn. The decision was made public via a post on Truth Social, in which Trump confirmed a temporary reduction of the reciprocal tariff rate to 10% for virtually all trading partners, while simultaneously increasing tariffs on Chinese imports to 125%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 2,476 points, which is 6.6%, and the NASDAQ Composite surged 9% as investors responded positively to unexpected shifts in U.S. trade policy. The president explained that more than 75 countries had contacted U.S. trade representatives and had refrained from retaliating, prompting the administration to authorize a pause and lower their reciprocal rate. Treasury Secretary Scott Bassett clarified that the 10% baseline tariff would remain in effect across most global imports during the 90-day period, excluding China. Despite uncertainties surrounding the long-term trade policy, global markets reacted with optimism. Trading floors saw swift buying after the announcement, reversing earlier declines driven by fears of prolonged trade conflict. The administration has not specified what will follow after the 90-day period, but negotiations with dozens of countries are ongoing. The 125% tariff on China remains active and was framed by Trump as a direct response to China's conduct in global markets. Let's take a look.
U.S. stocks surged following the announcement, with the benchmark S&P 500 climbing more than 9%. Trump's tariffs had hammered markets, raised the odds of recession, and prompted retaliatory responses from China and the European Union. Trump said he would raise the tariff on Chinese imports to 125%, from the 104% level that took effect at midnight, further escalating a high-stakes confrontation between the world's two largest economies. He said he would at the same time suspend targeted tariffs on other countries for 90 days to allow time for U.S. officials to negotiate with countries that have sought to reduce them. A 10% blanket duty on almost all U.S. imports will remain in place.
Nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. You know, it's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people. And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well, and they don't know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out, but they want to make a deal.
The African Union, the AU, has announced the launch of a new campaign aimed at securing reparations for slavery and colonialism, signaling a determined push for accountability and redress despite growing nationalist sentiments in parts of the Western world. Angela Na Afuli Oda, who leads the AU Citizens and Diaspora Organization, known as CIDO Division, said in a public statement that the time has come for African nations to speak with one voice and demand action, pointing to what she called a moral and historical imperative. The AU's reparations framework may encompass financial compensation, official apologies, educational and institutional reforms, as well as potential legal proceedings. The union is also exploring joint advocacy with Caribbean nations and examining the possibility of coordinated dialogue with European institutions, such as the European Union. The framework builds up outcomes from a February summit during which AU leaders endorsed a continent-wide plan to pursue historical redress. The summit's closing communique emphasized unity across African states and their global diasporas, outlining reparations not merely as restitution, but as a foundation for a just and equitable global order. Skepticism from Western governments is expected. Observers note that countries such as the United Kingdom, France, and the United States are currently experiencing strong wave of populism and nationalist rhetoric, which may complicate diplomatic engagement on reparations. Nevertheless, AU officials say they are prepared for long-term negotiations. Resistance from former colonial powers is not new, said one diplomat close to the discussion. What is new is Africa's unified strategic approach and the global platform we now occupy. The news continues after this break. Stay with us.
The countdown to the Lord's soon return has begun, and in this first quarter of the year of completeness, Loveworld USA has indeed been spreading and preaching the gospel of our Lord Jesus, preparing the hearts of billions around the world to expect the Lord.
Year, we will complete the full preaching of the gospel in all nations.
Loveworld USA broadcasted life-changing programs with our man of God. Global Communion Service, Your Loveworld Specials, Global Day of Prayer, Healing Streams. Loveworld News, where we emphasize truth and deception. Truth Watch USA, where Americans are exposed to the truth. Topics such as the failed agenda of so-called globalists, what's really happening to your food, President Trump, a sign to the church. Prayer programs where effective prayers were offered. Tremendous Power, Pray for America, faith-filled programs like I'm Just Saying, Pastor Chris Worth reading, Stick to the Word, programs with Pastor Benny, and many more. We say thank you, dearest partners, for contributing towards our programming and daily operations through your partnership. Loveworld USA is positioned for a massive harvest of souls all around the world as we set our sail to reach more people in this second quarter, in more languages, and change more lives. This is a call to our dearest partners all over the world to join this mandate in completing the full preaching of the gospel to all nations as you sponsor our 2025 projects. 1. Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project. Ensure the spread of the message of the man of God through Loveworld USA. The spread of our ministry programs and agenda through satellite, cable, internet, digital, mobile apps, Alpha TV, OTT platforms, our news, and our current affairs. 2. Minutes to Reach Billions 4.0. Make your every minute count for the gospel as we spread the awareness of Loveworld USA to your world. 3. Translation of our language-specific channels. Make it possible for billions around the world to watch our programs in their native language. 4. Tag your name to a program. Sponsor and tag your name to our various Loveworld USA programs. You can adopt a specific program. 5. Studio upgrade. Join us today with your lavish gift to the work of Loveworld USA. Every SPs or dollar you give goes to accomplishing our mandate to fully preach the gospel with our life-transforming content. For more information, please call the number showing on your screen. God bless you.
Welcome back. Prince Harry returned to the UK Court of Appeal for a second day on Wednesday as he continued his legal challenge seeking the restoration of his full police protection when visiting Britain. The Duke of Sussex, who stepped back from royal duties in 2020, is asking the court to overturn a previous ruling that upheld the government's decision to downgrade his state-funded security. Harry's legal team argued that the decision to reduce his protection was procedurally flawed and failed to properly assess the threats he and his family face. His attorney said Harry was singled out for inferior treatment and that officials failed to seek adequate expert advice on security risks before implementing the changes. The UK Home Office defended its approach as bespoke and appropriate, noting that Harry's change in role necessitated a flexible response tailored to his revisited status. Prince Harry, now 40, previously received round-the-clock police protection as a working royal. Since his departure from the royal duties alongside his wife, Meghan, Duchess Sussex, his security has been provided only by a case-by-case basis. His legal challenge stems from the 2020 decision to end full protection, a decision he says contributed to his to his and Meghan's move to California. During this week's hearing, parts of the proceeding were held in private due to the sensitive nature of security operations. Harry's lawyer cited specific threats, including calls for assassination by extremist groups and aggressive paparazzi chases in both London and New York. To support the need for increased protection, a ruling from the Court of Appeal will be delivered at a later date. Watch this.
Are you going to speak to your dad?
Prince Harry has returned to the UK for a Court of Appeal hearing in London. The Duke of Sussex is seeking the same police protection on his visits to the UK that he had received as a working royal. Harry and Meghan quit as senior working royals in early 2020. And in February of that year, the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, or RAVEC as it is known, decided that the Duke and his family should receive a different level of taxpayer-funded protection when in the country, after they moved to the US. Harry took legal action against this decision in 2021, and last year the High Court ruled that RAVEC's decision was not irrational or procedurally unfair. The Home Office has legal responsibility for RAVEC's decisions and is opposing Harry's appeal. Its lawyers say the Duke of Sussex's security should be decided on a case-by-case basis. But the High Court had also heard in 2023 that an offer from Harry to pay for security himself had been refused, with the Duke's lawyers claiming he does not feel safe when visiting under the current security arrangements. Harry's lawyers say he was singled out for inferior treatment.
The appellant does not accept that bespoke means better. In fact, in his submission, it means that he has been singled out for different, unjustified, and inferior treatment.
Harry's appeal against the ruling is scheduled to be heard both today and tomorrow at the Royal Courts of Justice. A written decision will be issued at a later date.
Human rights organizations, clergy in exile, and U.S. officials are raising urgent concerns over the escalating persecution of the Catholic Church in Nicaragua under President Daniel Ortega and Vice President Rosario Murillo. For the second consecutive year, Nicaragua has largely banned traditional Lent and Holy Week processions, reflecting what observers describe as one of the world's most severe crackdowns on religious freedom. Over 200 Catholic clergy and religious have been forced into exile, and priests remaining in the country reported being under near constant surveillance, with their pastoral activities tightly controlled by government authorities. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, during a February trip to Latin America, condemned the Ortega's regime campaign to silence religious voices, specifically accusing the government of trying to eliminate the church. A recent report by the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom described conditions in Nicaragua as abysmal and highlighted abuse such as the deportation of clergy, the suppression of evangelical and indigenous churches leaders, and attacks on religious sanctuaries. The regime has canceled the legal status of most religious institutions and expelled all Catholic nuns from the country. Despite ongoing repression, including arrests, deportation, and bans on key religious observances, the Catholic faithful in Nicaragua continue to worship, often in secret. Out of the 9 senior bishops in Nicaragua, 4 are now in exile. Bishop Ronaldo Alvarez, after spending over a year in prison, was released in 2024 through Vatican negotiations and exile to Rome. Just before we end the news, a quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast. And to end the news today, a quick recap of the headlines. President Trump announces 90-day tariff pause on global tariffs, raising China tariff to 125%. New York City authorities authorizes federal immigration office at Rikers Island for criminal investigation. Musk clashes with Schumer over claims of Social Security sabotage and government fraud. 3 Americans face U.S. charges after Congo coup attempt. Markets surge as President Trump pauses global tariffs. And that's the news for today. Join us at the same time tomorrow for more news. I'm Barbara Sam. Good night and God bless you.
you.